Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. That's my email. Email me for pricing or details about this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly for pricing. My email is tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing something new for 2021, but not altogether original. Nevertheless, this is one of the most anticipated Rolex watches of the year. How is that possible? Because it reunites the black and blue bezel with the much-loved Oyster Bracelet. That's how the model, the 126710 BLNR, was born in 2013. But after 2018, new generation of the GMT-Master II, Rolex did away with the Oyster black and blue bezel combination. So as of 2019, you could only get the black and blue with the Jubilee bracelet. That has changed for 21. Reunited, and it feels so good. The watch is the same in size, 40 millimeters in diameter by 12.1 millimeters thick from lug to lug. The watch measures 48.1 millimeters, and from end link to end link, the total distance across the wrist is 51 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Zoom out a little bit. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters circumference. You can see it's a good-looking piece. Broad, but not too much so. It's low enough to fit underneath the dress cuff. I can recommend it for wrists as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. It really doesn't come anywhere near the edge of my wrist. You can see from over the top that it's a nice, snug fit. The timepiece feels substantial. Solid end links, center links, thick gauge clasp. All of that contributes to a feeling of solidity, almost as though the watch were made of precious metal. And this is a unique quality of modern Rolex watches in steel on bracelets. They really do impress. The feel is unlike anything else. Oyster Bracelet is back. You know it as the 3-link design. The Jubilee was the 5-link. Jubilee, though historically a feature of the GMT for most of the period that it's been offered, it looks a little bit wan or over-refined. This is a bit bulkier, but also burlier and more masculine. That's the perception. It does feel more solid than a Jubilee in the hand. Polished flanks, satin shoulders, straight through polish down the middle, removable links fixed by screws, and then you can see there's a 5 millimeter quick link system that lets you move in or out 5 millimeters. It's the equivalent of one sizable link. You can see in the clasp there's some little tracks as well as divots, and they allow you to use your strap tool to move the anchoring point of the bracelet in or out for fine tuning. The clasp is more sophisticated than it looks at first glance. You can see the swing arm internally is polished. There's this beak and the hook system, and the beak and the hook latch together. There's a lift latch that actually unlocks the system. It's not friction fit. That's the first of 2 locks. The clamshell is the second. There's a little curve to dig your nail in and pull the clamshell up. The case is made of 904L steel, so is the bezel, so is the clasp, so is the bracelet. Rolex has its own foundry. It makes its own gold, it makes its own platinum, and it makes its own steel. And they use something called 904L, 904 low carbon, particularly anti-corrosive. You don't need to rinse it after salt exposure, which is unusual even among stainless steels. And of course, Rolex is making every part of the watch, not just the alloy, but the actual components. The lugs are satinated on their tops. The case flanks are sheer and polished. This is the super case. Perhaps you've heard of it. It gives the 40 millimeter watch the look of a 42 on the wrist. Screw down crown. It's a Rolex trip lock. The watch is 100 meters water resistant, which is superb for a pilot's watch. And since the first examples reached their target market in late 1954, the GMT Master and Master II have been Rolex take on pilots' watches. So here we have a 24-hour bidirectional rotating bezel, ceramic insert. The numerals and the indices are small deposits, very shallow deposits of platinum. The Cerachrom ceramic material is extremely resistant to scratches, and so is the sapphire. Together they act as a scratch-resistant heat shield for your watch. The dial, not much changes this generation, but in comparison to the previous black and blue with a Oyster Bracelet, now we have this little Rolex crown between Swiss and made, charting the changes as the Rolex models have rolled over to new generations since 2018. That has proliferated across the line. The dial base is a black lacquer. The hands as well as the indices are white gold 18 carats, so they never tarnish or oxidize. We have a lovely varnished blue 24-hour hand. You have 2 time zones here. One is the local time zone. You can see how I can move that local time zone even as the rest of the hands keep on keeping on. They're not disrupted in any way, but if I pull the crown out to its second stop, now I activate hacking seconds and everything moves in step. You've got the 24-hour hand. It moves at half the speed of the local hand. They can be set separately. In contrast to the previous GMT Masters, the Master II is a true dual-time watch. But if you set that 24-hour hand to Greenwich Mean Time, you can use the bezel to offset using the GMT offset of your port or airport of destination and temporarily read 3 times on the dial. New generation of GMT, new movement. 3 3285, 31 joules, bidirectional automatic winding. The power reserve rises from 48 to 70. You've got the hacking seconds, the 2 separate time zones. It beats away at 4 hertz or 8 beats per second. Rolex COSC chronometer certifies this movement, but then cases it up and tests it to run no worse than -2 + 2 seconds per day, what Rolex calls the superlative chronometer standard. The watch does feature a full balance bridge with a free-sprung balance to make it tough and shock resistant, a handmade Breguet overcoil hairspring so it keeps the same time, neither faster nor slower in any position. The hairspring is made by hand and crafted of a blue oxidized niobium zirconium alloy that Rolex calls Parachrom blue. It is highly, highly anti-magnetic. And, of course, the watch, being a bidirectional winder, is silky smooth and silent as it winds. The new generation movement also uses Rolex's Chronergy escapement, which is essentially their answer to Omega's coaxial, and Rolex's proprietary Paraflex shock protection system. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.